Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Third Space Indy. Happy birthday to you.
Scared rabbit, they've got you boxed in. Old habit, you draw the curtain. Lonely only if they ever leave.
I feel good. How do you feel?
Hello, everyone. Wait, actually, I have to project because we don't have any voice amplification, and I know Jesse Brown's also good at that. Also, I should be speaking into the microphone.
Fair.
Is it recording?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
You're the editor.
Yeah, that's true. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming out. I had a thing. Wait. First of all, I just want to get the sponsors out of the way, so then we don't have to do it later. The first person I'd like to thank is Alexa Adamson. Where's Alexa? Oh, look, it's Anderson, York.
Mr. Mayor, good
Did
to see
Alexa
you.
disappear? Is she hidden? Alexa. She's right here. Oh, there you are. I don't know who I'm yelling at. Do you want to come up and tell the people about where we are?
Despite wearing your invisibility cloak, apparently.
Yeah, I know, right?
I know. I was like,
Hi, everybody. Thank you for being here to support our sweet friend Michael and his podcast. So we're at Patina and Alley Cat. Patina is an art gallery that tries to highlight different types of artists. We really want to focus on 3D arts, people of color, LGBT artists, and women. Oh, I'm so sorry. Can you hear me better this way? Oh, thanks. That is our mission, is to kind of elevate those voices, making sure that they're heard and supported. And then Alley Cat is a ceramic studio where we try and focus on just making it a more accessible art form. So we do classes and workshops and have memberships and things like that. We're just hanging out.
perfect.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also want to say that we'll talk about what a third space is or third place is in a moment, but for me, like Alley Cat and Patina Art Gallery is absolutely my third space or place. And it means a lot that she's allowing me to be here for free. Let's go. Woohoo!
Woo.
Then I have like other sponsors. The laptop will go away. Hey, thanks to City Rising. I'm not looking at anyone specific. City Rising is a social impact studio. Most recently, they implemented an eviction data dashboard that looks to highlight and reduce the impact of the 30,000 evictions, mostly affecting Black and Latino women Indianapolis faces every year.
And children.
And children especially. So learn more at cityrising.org. And also shout out to Proformus and my good friend Jeffrey Tompkins. Proformus is an urban planning and design firm that helps neighbors and communities shape the places they already love. Based in Indianapolis, they're here to help make your place happen one block at a time. Woo! Woo. That's it. So let's get to the show. Yay! Oh wait, I forgot there's an intro. I don't normally do an intro, but if you didn't know this, as of yesterday, Third Space Indy is 1 year old. Woo! Yeah.
Yeah.
Pump. So I don't know if Jesse Brown knows this, but I moved to Indianapolis in October 2024, and I was laid off from my job January 2025. So like 3 months later, and I didn't know a lot of people, and I was thinking about like what I wanted to do, and at one point I was like, I want to become a politician, which is a goofy thing to think, I think.
Do it.
Yeah, Jesse Brown's been pushing me, but I reached out in early February to be like, hey, the most effective politician I could find was the one that got kicked out of his caucus. Would you like to meet me for coffee? And I think in a lot of ways, like, Jesse Brown opened up my world to Indianapolis. He connected me with a ton of people. He's the person who connected me with Mark Lotta, who now sponsors the podcast, and it was my second guest, and has done like such an amazing job of bringing me into Indianapolis. Yeah.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
That's
So
really sweet.
yeah. So and since I met you, like I wrote this down, but I'm sort of winging it. But since I met you, you continue to impress me. And as somebody who embodies what I believe it means to be like a true public servant. You represent what I perceive as Christian values that were taught to me as a child. I think you sacrifice yourself, mind, body, and spirit, for everyone you serve here in the community. And from the I wrote this, I think it's fun. From the dregs of the corporate halls of Angie's List to being the loud voice of the people of the Near East Side and beyond. It is my pleasure to share today's guest, Jesse Brown. Yeah.
Maybe the kindest intro anyone's ever given me. Wow, thanks.
Yeah,
man.
normally they just call you a dirty communist. And
Yeah, also true, but like,
before we actually start today, I do want to define two words. They both end in ism. So the two words are capitalism and not communism, socialism. And the the suffix of ism just means system. So when you talk about capitalism, that is a system of capital, of money making, things that serve the interests of creating capital. And when we talk about the ism of socialism, that means the ism of social dynamics of people. How do you create a world that serves people? And I just wanted to throw those two definitions out because I think it's really important. I suspect we might use those words throughout the podcast.
never used either word in my life. How dare you?
Never. So for anybody who may not know who you are, Jesse, can you let our audience know? Also, can everyone hear us? Am I speaking loudly enough? That's important. For anyone who may not know who you are, can you let our audience know who you are?
Awesome, sure. Well, after that great intro, I'm going to sell myself short, hopefully, compared to that. But no, I'll try to go above it and just lie. So I'm Jesse Brown. I am a first-time politician who just got elected in 2023, serving from 2024 through the end of 2027, and hopefully beyond. Next year, you'll get the chance, if you live around here, to determine that. I'm the City-County Councilor for District 13, which goes from like Delaware to Emerson, roughly Washington to 21st Street. I live up at 20th and Riley, like the very northeast corner of the district. But again, I go all the way downtown. So the Near East Side has a lot of different people with a lot of different income levels, ethnicities, histories in the neighborhood, or relatively, newcomers, carpetbaggers like Michael Zarek just playing. But yeah, so my job on the city council obviously is to be the ultimate dictator of this district. I hand dig out every pothole in the streets, and it's all my fault. No, it's actually the legislation or the legislature of Indianapolis is a 25-person body. There are no at-large councilors anymore. Republicans decided that was too annoying for them, and so they changed the law to stop that from happening. 25 people at the council. We are the fiscal body for the city, $1.7 billion budget, and yet the council seems to believe that their job is actually just to rubber stamp what the mayor wants to do. So during my brief time so far in politics, I have mostly been fighting against that concept, fighting against, I ran under the slogan I stole from AOC, a better world is possible, because I've lived in the city my whole life. I bought my house when I was 22 in 2008 when they were handing out mortgages and Cracker Jack boxes. And I noticed, I still don't have streetlights. I still don't have sidewalks. People are still dying deaths of despair in my neighborhood, 46218 zip code where I live. When is that going to change? We've had a supermajority Democrats in charge. I always thought it was the Republicans who were the bad guys. Why aren't things getting better? And so I kind of count myself on a mission to figure out, right? And try to pull people out from behind the curtains and just talk in public about this. Which has not made me very popular among politicos. How's that for an intro? Too long?
I was like, dang, you could have kept going. First question, bouncing off that. You'll think this is funny probably, but who's going to do it?
Who's going to do it? Yeah, that's a great question. We're all talking about it, aren't we? It seems clear someone.
Oh, yeah?
Father Time, perhaps. But yeah, it's definitely coming, I believe.
Yeah. Who? So the first thing I want to talk about, because I consider you a really good friend, but I actually don't know a lot about your history as a person. And I think
international man of mystery.
I read that you were a teacher once.
True.
So can you walk me through your time pre-Angie's List and then during Angie's List, and maybe what made you want to throw away the life of sending emails for a living?
Yeah, I had it all, right? Gave it all up. So I was actually born in New Jersey, My parents got divorced when I was 2, came back with my mom to where she was from, which was Indiana, lived in Pike Township with my mom and my very Republican grandparents for a few years growing up. But when she could afford her own place, she moved to the Near East Side, specifically Irvington. That's where I wanted to buy my house. I could not afford to buy my house even in 2008 when things were super cheap there. So I got to see a lot of the class divide growing up, right? My grandparents were fairly well off. They had made it rich owning liquor stores and in the insurance industry, very noble professions that have a lot of honor associated. And so that's, of course, why they deserved all of these material gains, right? My mom was super hardworking single mom and struggled really hard. But I was super lucky and really good at standardized tests. So I went to Catholic grade school as a non-Catholic, Our Lady Lourdes in Irvington, got into Cathedral High School, which is a super preppy, I just saw on IBJ, it's the largest private school in central Indiana, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and most expensive still, I believe. Park Tudor might have a speed. Yeah, Park Tudor, I think, most expensive Catholic school. It's like a Chittard.
Yeah. Do you know what the price is?
Oh boy, I just was looking at, no, they had did not disclose, but they did say that if you're a senior, you have to pay an extra $1,000 over the do not disclose amount. So I thought that was really helpful and useful to put in a newspaper. When I was there, it was, I think, $8,000 or $9,000 a year. And remember, I'm old, so 2000 to 2004. But I got it for free. So I got a 100% full ride on scholarships. And so was kind of the poor kid at the rich kid school, the non-Catholic kid at the Catholic school. So I got to see a lot of these like divides growing up and reacted to that by becoming just like kind of at least a punk ass, maybe a punk, depending on who you ask. So I was like a straight A student, national merit scholar, but I had dreadlocks down to my shoulders. I was a straight edge vegan. I was my same height as I am today, but 147 pounds. So imagine me like 75 pounds lighter, so string bean. Listen to Rage Against the Machine aggressively.
I just need to pause real. Like, I'm learning so much right now.
There are photos, and I look worse than you would think.
Well, white dude with dreads, the classic. Yeah.
It was a real move. Yeah. So, consider myself an anarchist back then and could like quote political philosophy at you and talked about why the government was never to be trusted, which makes it pretty ironic that I now serve in the government. But I don't disagree. Like now that I'm in the government, I'm like, yes, I was correct. They shouldn't be. But yeah, so like I remember I was a sophomore in high school when 9/11 happened. And I was actually in the middle of taking a standardized test. So the first time I knew anything had happened was when our assistant principal came over the intercom and said, due to the events on the East Coast, the school is on lockdown. Say a prayer for our country. And like literally with no context. So all the other, 16, 17-year-old guys in the room were like, we're going to war. Oh shit. And they weren't totally wrong. So I remember like I went to Washington, D.C. with my mom to march against the Iraq war before it even started. So I was like a big time lefty back then. But, especially at Cathedral High School, I had a couple friends who agreed with me on my politics, and 99% of people were like, you crazy evil commie, like you're not even American. If you don't like it, you should get out, was the phrase back then.
I think they're still saying that to you.
They kind of are, but now there are fewer people putting the yellow ribbon on their car and totally agreeing with them. So I've always been like pretty outspoken and confident in my leftist politics, but I just didn't think that was popular. And so, did a lot of stuff after high school. I didn't want to be part of the ivory tower elite, man. So my mom will still bring this up to me, but she opened my mail one day to find out that I had an unsolicited full ride offer to Princeton. That I was like, no, I don't want to be part of that system. So I moved out on my own and worked at a pizza place instead.
Wait, what's the pizza place?
It was Marco's Pizza at 12th and Arlington. Doesn't exist anymore.
Oh, okay.
It was great though. Handmade crusts, worth going to if you can find one still open. So I moved in with a roommate of mine who had dropped out of Purdue after a year. The two of us had a $450 a month apartment. And I was like, yeah, now I'm living like a regular common person. This is great. And then after like a month of paying bills, I was like, no, actually, the ivory tower sucks, but so does this. And so put myself through IUPUI, paid my own way there. Thankfully, I got to take advantage of the one nice thing my biological dad ever did for me, which was not make any money ever. So since I lived on my own, I was forced on my FAFSA to put at least one of my parents' income down. I was like, but neither are providing me any aid whatsoever. I'm totally paying all my own bills. They're like, doesn't matter. You're under 25. You have to put one down. I was like, well, which one? They're like, well, which one did you spend the most time at? I was like, I visited my dad one weekend and stayed over at his house. I haven't done that at my mom's, so my dad. And so his $0 income helped me get some financial aid to go to IUPUI. Anyway, yeah, went to IUPUI, majored in cultural anthropology because I found the coolest scholarship in the world. If anybody knows somebody going into IU Indy, they should look into this. It's the Sam Masarikia Scholarship. Also, if you can't tell, I will talk for 6 straight hours.
No, I
I'll
think
never give you a chance.
Is
so
anybody like, I'm
if you start talking, I'll just like slap the mic out of your hand. Sam Masarikia Scholarship, though, is an organizing scholarship. Sam was a steelworker who became a business agent and an organizer for the steelworkers, but was also just a working class dude. And so his income went up as he gained success in his union, but he still lived in the house he bought in the 70s, didn't ever upgrade his furniture, didn't have kids, so just like had a nest egg at the end. And he was like, man, like I feel like people aren't learning how to be organizers anymore. Maybe I could help with that. So he created an endowment that pays full ride tuition and books for IUI students. And the downside is you have to intern with labor, community, or senior organizations, basically, and learn how to be a better organizer. And there's classes you have to take to learn to be a better organizer as well. So I was like, oh, what a horrible downside. Like, this is actually the most interesting stuff I'm doing in school. But at the time, what I thought I wanted to be was a teacher. And they've since changed this. So if you want to be a teacher, you can still get the Masarikia Scholarship. But at the time, you had to get a liberal arts school degree. And so I couldn't get an education major. So I decided to get cultural anthropology because I liked the classes the most. And immediately, well, actually, I got a work study job while I was in school working at a charter school, the MET, the Indianapolis Metropolitan Career Academy, which got rebranded to Indianapolis Met High School. Goodwill runs it. It's in Hawville. Evil. It is a place of evil. It was my dream job for like 3.5 years. But even then, I was in an organizing scholarship. So people were like, charter school, you're going to need to organize if you're there. Try to get a union going. And so I did. I tried to. At the time, the state teachers union, ISTA, was not interested in organizing charter schools. They were interested only in destroying all charter schools. Maybe they were right, but it was a little frustrating from my perspective because I had like an organizing committee ready to go. And they were like, no, we're not going to give you resources until after you win your election. I was like, well, okay. So then once we're paying our dues, sure. Burned me out really badly. It went from this awesome school where students like learned how to you do internships 2 days a week. So you'd go out into the community, like work in a nurse's office and figure out like, oh, is this a career I would want? Because if so, now that's your motivation to go back and take your classes for the prereqs. And if not, pick a different internship so that you know what you're working towards. Because I think they were correct. And I was, even as a national merit scholar, I was like, school is stupid. What is this preparing me for? I don't want to go. So I really liked it. One day, we got news back from Scott Bess, our school superintendent, who's now like, I forget what his actual position is with the organization, but it's a pro-charter school statewide lobbying organization. So that was my school superintendent who I have personal experience with. The dude sucks. Come fight me, Scott. Don't edit this. How dare you edit this? Anyway, one day he said, well, look, like we need Republicans in the state house to have our backs. Otherwise our school gets shut down, and they are having trouble having our backs because our test scores are low. And all of us teachers were like, well, right. Our model is like, we're out in the community. We're not focused on test scores. He's like, that model just changed. Now we're doing test prep. And so I watched attendance plummet, like morale plummet. A bunch of students who had been like, had been held back before and were like, okay, Mr. Jesse, I really like the school. We're going to try to make it work. Just dropped out. So I'm just watching this destroying kids' lives as our test scores on paper look better. And so it was super demoralizing. They cut our health insurance, tripled the rates that we had to pay, and then lectured us that it was our fault as teachers for going to the doctor too much, and we need to learn the benefit of just laying on the couch with orange juice more often. Just an evil person. Again, come fight me. And so that burned me out.
I don't think are like, is throwing down the gauntlet like an illegal thing? You can just be like,
yeah. I'm a pacifist, so you'll win that fight, but I will talk shit while you do it. So anyway, flash forward, I just graduated from IUPUI finally. I had worked for 1 semester as a homeroom teacher after 3.5 years of being a paraprofessional and stuff like that. Was in a community of teachers program where I was working 70 hours a week at that charter school, teaching 7 different subjects, and then after school hours doing a master's program to get my secondary education license because I was on an emergency license. Super weird. You'll never predict this, but I burned out really hard. So I was like, okay, well, the one thing I definitely don't want to do in my life is teach. So what am I going to do?
That's a long journey to figure that out, I feel like.
So I'm like, okay, what I learned how to do was organize. So let me try to learn how to do that and do that more on the job. So I joined a Unite Here salting program. Do you have any idea what salting is? Let me try
I know what
stop
salting is.
monologuing.
No, you're great. Wait, here's some water.
Oh, hey.
Yeah. Yeah, how about that? I know what salting is. So salting is when you have for example, if you have an Amazon warehouse and you're trying to form a union at Amazon, you send a union organizer, or someone who is an organizer sends someone with knowledge of what union organizing is to work at the warehouse to foster division.
Yeah,
I suppose.
Agitate,
or I guess
organize.
foster. Oh, what's up? I don't know.
It's kind of a great question. I've heard a couple different apocryphal answers to that, but it's
for
like
those listening, sorry. The question was, why is it called salting? Sorry, there you go. Thank you, Sam Ferrante.
It's like seasoning the workers to prepare them, or seasoning the workplace to prepare it for like a fight. Why is that salt and not sugar or acid? Like vinegar. I don't know. I have no idea. But that's a perfect answer, Michael.
Yeah.
So
I know things.
you know things. Yeah, I wanted to let you demonstrate your knowledge of things. Back to my monologue. So some organizers from Unite Here convinced me to salt for them and help set up hospitality worker unions in Indianapolis, which I was like, great. I've been studying unions. I've been reading a bunch of books. I've learned about the IWW from back in the day. Shout out.
IWW.
The Industrial Workers of the World, which Eugene Debs, our Who's Your Hero, was involved as a founding member. They basically took the unique at the time and still not the main way of looking at it, that all workers across all industries had a lot in common, and existing unions wasted a lot of time kind of arguing over turf, as opposed to just like all of us should be pointing in the same direction, which is against the bosses, because we all have a lot that we could gain together, which I've always loved that philosophy. Anyway, so I learned a bunch about it, but like there weren't really unions at all in Indianapolis that I was aware of that I really, there was like the Justice for Janitors campaign, worked hard on that, but like it was all aspirational. We hadn't won anything. And so I got a job as a room service delivery guy at the Westin Hotel downtown, right by the convention center. So I went from making $40,000 a year as a charter school homeroom teacher to making $6.35 an hour plus tips, working 3 third shifts and 2 second shifts a week, not the same days every week. So I was a horrible, worthless zombie. I was so tired all the time. And like the point of salting, you don't just come in here and act like Jesse Brown and just immediately start talking about your politics, because that's how you get fired, right? It's illegal to fire somebody for their politics and for organizing a union, but it happens all the time at every workplace. So instead, you're like undercover and you're like slowly trying to like float the idea and see how people feel about it.
Hey, do you want bigger pay?
Yeah, man, our pay certainly sucks, doesn't it? And you try to get other people to talk about it. You hang out a lot after work and just like make friends. There were like 10 of us doing this, so we would all work at our shitty poverty wage service industry jobs and then go like have a collective dinner potluck every Friday and compare notes about like how are we doing. After 9 months of this, the conclusion was, there's no way in hell we're going to organize that hotel. So they had tried like 2 years before, and some of you saw some stickers that were made by a buddy, Sly Badges. That guy's dad was like the face of anti-union injustice in Indianapolis for several years.
What is with the most radical people I know having the worst parents?
No. He wasn't a bad guy. He worked for the hotel.
Sorry, I got it backwards.
As a bellman.
Got it.
And he was such an outspoken supporter of the union that what the hotel did is that hotel and every hotel in downtown Indianapolis fired all of their bellhops and outsourced them to a third-party company so that they could fire them, because it would be illegal to fire them themselves. So they just outsourced the entire bellhop department, and now there's this separate company that does it. And for some reason, that company won't hire the guys who were union organizers when they go back and work there. So they just busted the union in just this flagrantly anti-employee way. And that happened like 2 years before I got the job there. So everybody was so burnt out and like upset and scared that they did not want to organize a union, which it was 9 months of like hell to learn. So I was like, okay, do I quit?
Can I interject?
Never.
Question.
Not ever. Yeah, please.
Don't feel bad about talking too much, because I feel like, first of all, I am drawn in. Second of all, you've mentioned the word burnout multiple times in the context of just your life and of organizing and of just, I don't know, I feel in a lot of ways I am personally burnt out about a lot of things. How do you feel like you remain convicted or continuing to push forward in what you do now?
That's a really good
Because
question.
every time I talk to you, you're like, I'm doing this and this and this and this and this. Also, I sent my constituent email last night, and I'm doing a TikTok, and I'm going to yell at Joe Hogshead, and XYZ, ABC, D. And I go, do you need a break? And you go, never.
Not ever.
So how do you keep doing that?
I do actually take breaks. That's one thing I've learned. So I'm 40 now, not 40 something,
Old.
40 in 4 months, 5 months. Yeah. So, I mean, you mentioned earlier in your very kind intro that you like always see me sacrificing, and that's accurate. And I think the lesson I've learned is you have to stop sacrificing when you're out, right? Like you cannot keep giving when there's nothing left in your cup. And multiple times as a younger man, I just kept on anyway until like your body or your mental health will force you to, right? So you like run full speed into a brick wall enough times and you will slowly learn to see it coming in advance. I hope. I think I'm on that track now. Yeah, because it just like, you know, what I found is I'm not very good at just like, so when I was 16, my very Republican grandpa I mentioned, liquor stores and insurance, took me out to dinner, and he did this for all of his grandkids. And for all of his grandkids, it was just like a coming of age, like you can go anywhere in the city, we're going to go out to eat, sort of like, I'm glad you're 16, you're like a real person now. But for me, it felt, my grandfather's not the devil, I will say, but it felt to me like Jesus being tempted by the devil in the desert or whatever. He was like, let's go to Outback and like, you know, get whatever you want. And like, let me tell you about how much better it is to have money. And like, it was trying to convince me not to be the way I am in terms of politics and just like constantly kind of fighting the man as opposed to finding a way to succeed. And, you know, I just remember him being like, I am just convinced, you know, like in 10 years, you're going to be like conservative or like, you know, like your politics are going to get way more right wing once you see how the world works. And I was like, no, I think I like see how the world works, but it doesn't work for me. You know, like that was the Cathedral High School thing is like, you know, I could have had like a pretty comfortable middle class life, but I saw my middle class friends and they weren't happy either. Right. They were feeling really unfulfilled. And, you know, as a socialist, as a Marxist, I would say they're experiencing alienation and the lack of third spaces, to bring in the name of the podcast.
I didn't do the intro. I failed. Well, I'll do the intro in a second, but keep going.
You know, like people just didn't feel a sense of community or any control over their lives, even if they had more money, even if they had like a really nice truck in their driveway and a good TV on the wall and they can go out to the movies every weekend and go out to eat. Like that wasn't leading people to seem satisfied. They were doing drugs just like my poor friends were, you know what I mean? Like nobody was really like seeming to have it all put together. So I was like, so if the only paths lead to places I don't want to go, I have to be off the beaten path, right? And so yes, it's going to be hard, but like let's get more people to try to walk in a better direction and like again build a better world, right?
Great
Yeah.
answer.
Let's intro the podcast.
I'm gonna do the intro of the podcast, but I'll just have it in the middle, whatever. So in 1989, this is for you. In 1989, I'm pointing it. Don't dodge. In 1989, a man named Ray Oldenburg wrote a book. It's called The Great Good Place, and then he's a sociologist, so this is a sort of sociological book, I guess. And in this book, he coined the term third place. And this describes a place that is outside of your work and outside of your home that you can go and be with others and build communities. So the idea is that you have three places. I'll be a little more long-winded since we're here together. So your first place is your home, your second place is your work, and the third place is anywhere outside of those two places that you can go and sort of build community with others. So the stereotypical third space is like a coffee shop or a small bar. And a lot of this podcast is about finding people here in Indianapolis who are doing that type of work. And it's not just, someone asked me, they said, doesn't a business existing as a local business inherently make it a third space? The answer is no. You have to do a little more labor than that. Shout out to Eric in the back, who I think understands this well. Where there's a little more, it's almost like a completely vibes-based thing, but a lot of it has to do with the consistency of the space, of the people that exist within the space, and about like the actual feeling of being there as opposed to just going to a space and spending money there. It's so much more than just a business, which is why Patina is so wonderful. So when I think about Third Spaces and a part of town that is developing these types of spaces well, part of the reason I invited Jesse Brown on is because as the, I don't want to say leader, but it's the best word I have, the leader of District 13, he's doing a good job of fostering, if not policy, at least pushing for policy that attempts to rebuild what we may have historically had and lost in a lot of ways. Do you have any thoughts about your own push, or maybe it sounds harsh to say, but like the failures of other local politicians to push for these types of spaces and the buildup of community?
Yeah, that's a deep question. I like it. So I think the thing that frustrated me most about politics, as I could observe it as an outsider, right? Because I was never really in, club meetings or anything like that. I've always voted Democrat my entire life, never voted third party or anything, but just like never felt connected to that or like I had any say on what went on outside the, 2 seconds in November and May. To get back to my sentence, my view of what politics was, people come out from behind the curtain and then they vote, and it seems like the real conversations have already happened, and there aren't really there's not the chance to participate and really, engage in, like the dialectics, to use the Marxist term, since I just saw I Love Boosters, really good movie. But it should all be product of a debate. And whatever wins should not then
Classic leftist guy. Like, I just want to debate people.
Yeah, debate me, bro. No, I think like part of public policy creation should be talking about the pros and cons of different courses of action, and whatever side wins, the other side should not be like dustbin of history. We'll never consult that again. We should look back a couple years later and be like, were we right? Did we make the right call? What could we have learned from the paths we chose not to walk down? And like, whose voices didn't get listened to that maybe we should now try to pull into the conversation so they don't just say F this and walk away, right? Like how do we keep people feeling like this is all our city that we're building together? And I kind of got the impression that the government didn't want to do that, right? Like, we're very, very happy making decisions among a small group to speak on behalf of everyone else. So I'll catch myself doing that sometimes. And, my wife, Mary Kate, usually does a really good job of like kind of like slapping my hand anytime I say I, because it should be like we or my constituents, right? So I want to
Mary Kate is very good at slapping your hand.
She is great at that. She is perfect. No notes. Excellent wife. 10 out of 10. So, I always strive to be a tribune of the district, meaning I'm just bringing other people's voices to the halls of power and kind of trying to force the halls of power to come to the district. And I don't want to be the intermediary where everybody trusts me to get it done. I don't want you to trust me at all. I want you to be like, where are the notes from that meeting? Do you have a recording? Can I be there too? And I want to say yes. Partially selfishly, right? Because I think when I am like the one dude with too many pieces of flair on their jacket, it's easy to be like, oh, he's just out there. He doesn't know what he's talking about. But when I say like, here are the 30 names and addresses of the constituents who are bugging me about this, then it becomes more obvious that like, no, this is actually at least a portion of the city. Whether you think we're the majority like I do, or whether you think, it's a vocal minority, either way, we're here, we're vocal, and we all are talking with each other and aren't ignorant. We actually have opinions that deserve to be respected, whether or not you agree with us, right? So I'll finally answer your question, I suppose. I think that policy in general, we should be, again, just having more discussion and debate about what are the pros, what are the cons of this. I've noticed that politicians want to act like they're solving problems all the time when we very, very rarely are. When we look at the way, for example, like road construction projects, even good ones, right? Like, I think the two-way conversion on Michigan and New York was really good. But the way these projects are just like a huge pile of money to do this massive, well-designed thing in the middle of like a map where it's like there be dragons, like it's like you're off the map. Like, there's no, like, turn down any of the alleys off of Michigan and New York and you're going to lose an axle, right? And so that's a poorly designed project when people used to park on the street. Now the official city answer is go park in your alley. And it's like, I would die, like that is not a possibility. So I think we never found, despite Mary Kate's awesome wisdom, we never found a sexy way to like put this on a bumper sticker, but we wanted to get to this idea that we collectively have the answers to the problems in our society, right? It's not that like, it's like the Bernie Sanders, not me, us. It's not like one savant politician is going to come in and like figure out how to square the circle and just like do it all in a back room. We have to let a lot more people be involved because like folks running Patina know what they need on this block more than I do, right? Which means more than Joe Hogsett, which means more than Mike Braun, right? Like local people have knowledge and wisdom and skills and expertise and really just need to be empowered to make their lives work the way that they know they can, right? And so, I was a manager for a while when we get to my evil corporate Angie's List days. So the IWW has a rule. Anybody can be a member of the IWW. You could be an artist, you could be unemployed, you could be disabled, you could be almost any working person. If you have the power to hire and fire, you're out. They'll yank your card. And so I had been a member for 6 years and had to turn it in because I was getting paid $30,000 a year as a manager at Angie's List, but technically I had the power to hire and fire. But I tried to be a good manager. It was, I guess, maybe a prep for being a politician. It's like roles that I hate, but yet exist in this world. And so somebody's got to do them. But what I always try to do is take the roadblocks away from the frontline people and treat them like heroes. And my job was to like jump in the way of any problems and let them keep working. So I was a pretty popular manager. And like I try and probably fail, but that's what I try to do as a politician too, is just like let my constituents succeed and like I'll soak up the hate and try to run interference if possible.
That is okay. Amazing. Yeah, no, seriously. That's cool. Quick shout out. My lovely wife is in the back. First of all, this podcast would not exist without her. I need you to make that very clear.
Yeah.
I would also probably not exist without her also in a lot of ways. I don't nourish myself. Do you know how long we've been recording for?
6 hours.
Oh, 36 minutes. Oh my God, the time flies. The time flies when Jesse Brown is yapping. That's the I failed to get a can because I was going to pass around a can for my canned questions for you guys to write down, but we'll just use hands later. But first, we're going to go to my canned questions, which the first one, sponsored by City Rising, is what is a third space or place to you?
Yeah, I think you described it really well earlier. And my Jesse Brown spin on it would be a place where you have at least some degree of autonomy and ownership in that place. Like I was thinking, I'm always thinking about how to interrupt you to make a sarcastic joke. Not you, anyone. It's just the way my brain works. I'm sorry. So you were describing Third Space and I was going to jokingly be like, so like a Starbucks, right? As a joke.
Okay.
But go ahead.
I was going to say Starbucks is not restricted from being a third space. I would say McDonald's can be a third space.
Sure. And yeah, that's what I was going with, because Starbucks 20 years ago and like how they kind of became such a big deal was because they wanted to be an inviting place where you could just bring your laptop and just fuck off doing whatever you wanted all day and they wouldn't come bug you about it. Yeah. And then as they've been like, you need to ask for a key to go to the bathroom, we don't want you in here because we're worried you're homeless. Like as they've been like, buy something or get out, it's, I think, becoming...
As they stop paying their workers a living wage.
That as well. Yeah, shout out to the Mass Ave Starbucks, which is union. But... so it's a spectrum, right? It's like the degree to which you can feel not awkward about walking in, sitting down and just being yourself. Like that's the degree to which is a third space, right? So to me, like you said, it could be corporate, it could be privately owned. But if the general policies and the general vibe would allow you to just like come in and do something a little bit off base of what everybody else is doing without being disruptive, then to me, that's a third space. That's like, your vibe is adding to the room vibe, right? Your energy is kind of being part of the mixed salad of emotional experience in that place.
Yeah, definitely. I also want to, there's something I like to think about also, which is that like a place can be a third space or place for someone else and not for you. That's a really important point that I think doesn't get talked about. Like, I really like going to Amelia's over here in Windsor Park. That is not a third place for me because first of all, I don't go enough. And I do like see people I know there, but it's like, I don't live in that area. It's not like somewhere I frequent. But it is a third place for many of the people who live around it. And I think that a lot of businesses go, hey, we're a third place. Like that, it's not something inherent to the business. It's more about, like you said, being part of the emotional soup, which is a great way, or you said salad, but that's funny.
That was my high school government teacher hated the phrase melting pot about the United States because she was like, it should be like a tossed salad because like you should retain your individual characteristics but be part of the whole. You shouldn't melt and just become homogenized white milk or whatever, you know.
That sounds like something I've heard from a man in the back of the room. He said that we have a melting pot here in the United States, but the heat is turned up too high.
Yeah.
Shout out to Patrick. Next question. What is a third space or place that has existed for you previously and does not any longer?
The first one that popped up was the Abbey Coffee House. Old heads know what's up. Used to be back when it was like when 10th and Mass was like a little bit of a sketchy place to go. So
I've
new
heard
people
that.
in town are like, what? Are you serious? That's like the most like kind of bougie artsy place.
It's still sketchy if you don't like people in suits.
True. Yes. But those are the people you would never see at 10th and Mass, like when I was in high school. But there was this little coffee shop called the Abbey, and they were one of the first places that like frequently would have like a vegan pastry. Like that was a very rare thing. It was like a coffee shop. That's rare with vegan good. Like now that's every coffee. You could not be a coffee shop without having that. But when I was a like 17-year-old vegan, so I didn't drink or whatever, but I was like, oh, coffee and like a vegan chocolate cake. This was awesome. And they were like, it kind of had Rabble Coffee vibes where it was just kind of like a little grungy, but like the people there all had heart. They really welcomed, horrible dreadlocked teenagers to come hang out there without ever like judging me or whatever. So it was just a really cool place. Then they moved to like 9th and Penn, and then they shut down years ago. So
Yeah. Do you have a specific memory of that place? Any time where you were like, man, this is a place I want to be?
I mean, I didn't have a lot of places to go hang out. Like I would hang out at friends' houses. Solidarity Books was the like anarchist info shop, so I would hang out there. I would do Food Not Bombs and hang out, in front of Central Library, even way back then on Sundays. But that was like out in public. It was rare that I had like a place with walls that I could go and hang out, without a bunch of money and still feel welcomed. Yeah.
That's funny.
So not a specific time, but just
That's
like
okay.
it would be like, oh, that's always an option.
Yeah.
But
it's also vibes based. Like I
Yes.
said, like third spaces are so vibes. Like you don't even have to have a memory. You just know that it is a memorable place. Like I think that's important too. I have one last question, and then I'll open it up to the guests. Every episode of the podcast, I ask a question from the previous guest. My previous guest for this one, I talked to yesterday. Her name is Danielle Guerin, runs the Soul Food Project here in Indianapolis. She said, if you were a plant, what plant would you be? I made the joke that you would say government plant.
boom. Never that though. I think I would be like Clover, maybe because I'm looking directly at Clover right now. But it's kind of
Looks
like,
around, sees a plant.
I would be grass. No, just I don't know. Clover has flowers, but not ostentatious flowers. Really, it's just kind of like hardworking and grows everywhere. And like isn't ever going to be like in a beauty magazine or like a bouquet usually, but is pleasant to look at and generally improves the vibes. I hope.
Gorgeous metaphor. Fun fact from Anna Darling, the state flower is the peony. But if you didn't know, the peony is the state flower because there was a politician who said, I grow peonies. How do we sell these? and then they updated the legislation.
Amazing.
The zinnia was the state flower before that. Thank you,
Wow.
Alexa Adamson.
Corruption.
So don't believe the
So the
things
real
laid out
government
before you.
plant is a peony, man.
Yeah, that's what I've learned. Great. Why don't we go ahead and ask the question for the next episode guest, and then we'll open it to the crowd. Is that okay?
Yeah.
What question
I'm
would
just-
you like to
I
ask
want it
the
to be a good
next
one.
guest of Third Space Indy?
What is a rule that you wish would totally go away, like in people's hearts as well as in the law?
Oh, I think there's a.
I don't know how I would answer.
That's
by
a
the way.
good question for the next person. Who? Are you like rearing to raise your hand? Yeah. Okay. We're going to just take questions from the audience. I can ask more questions if no one raises their hand. But yeah, thanks so much for doing this. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we open up the floor?
No, I mean, I really meant what I said. I like to present other people's arguments to government officials, especially who don't normally listen to them. I don't know that they listen to me either, but I can at least make sure that they're getting the official, on the mic, they're hearing it. So I always tell constituents this in my newsletter, but if there's ever something you see me saying or doing that you disagree with, those are the things I want to hear from you first and foremost, because as I've proven today, I will go on and on about the stuff I already agree with. I don't need your help. But if I'm missing something, that's where I need your help. And if you think I'm getting something wrong, you could very well be right. I'm very opinionated, but I'm also willing to listen. So, hit me up and get coffee. I'll buy the coffee and you can tell me why I'm wrong. And I'll only get sort of defensive, and then I'll think about it afterwards and probably email you and be like, okay, I think you were right about something. So
you've never bought
that's a promise.
Coffee. I just want to say that.
Well, you've never had anything I was wrong about.
I've purchased you coffee, actually. Well, thank you so much for doing this. Is there anyone in the crowd who has a question for County Councilor Jesse Brown of District 13? Eric?
Sure. So it's recently become my mission to promote Third Spaces, and I've realized that a big part of that is teaching the people in the village to be good villagers. And I imagine you run into that a lot in your position, and you've found things that are more and less effective in growing good villagers, not just the places that exist there.
That's
the question was how to be a good villager in short.
Yeah, specifically, to grow good third spaces, you have to have good participants, right? Good villagers. And so how do you encourage people to do that? So I think I want to be very careful in how I phrase this, because I think you could change a couple words of what I say and it would be the typical government answer, which I think is horrible and evil, right? But it's actually not too far off of that. What I found from a lot of my peers in politics are they get super, super offended if you say anything about them without talking to them and just say it privately to them, right? Because they don't like public critique. What I would say is do publicly critique. I don't think it's reasonable that you have to have everybody's cell phone number in order to have an opinion, right? But when people then engage with you and are like, whoa, can you say more about that? Treat them in good faith and try to work with them and figure out where, assume that they're a decent person who wants good things in the world and you can reason with them. There are people who don't fit that, right? But they're rare enough. And I think it makes us all bad villagers if we treat other human beings as the enemy. It was Michael Brooks, I think, who said, be kind to people, be ruthless with systems, right? But don't forget the be kind to people part. Even people with ideas or opinions you find really odious and hurtful to society, try to work with them and have it be a collective project to change minds, as opposed to, shunning people or shaming people or, cancel culture morality police. I just don't think that's very effective, and then leads to heightened tensions where people don't want to hang out, right? Trust me, there are times when we want to create that divisive kind of fighty spirit, but I think that you seem crazy if you just jump right to that and you haven't done the patient work of trying to build first. That should be a last resort. And so I think try to figure out okay, where can I take a step back, examine what I've said? Maybe I wasn't as clear as I thought. Or what do they know that I don't know that's leading them to believe this, right? Which doesn't mean you have to change your mind at the end of the day, but I think even just engaging with people, I've had a lot of people, I'll tell a quick story because I haven't been talking enough.
How quick?
35 minutes. No, I had this far-right Republican guy who waited for me after a city council meeting. I think I've told you this story. But he just saw how I was engaging with people and talking and listening, even people I disagreed with. And he came up to me afterwards and just poked me in the chest, was just let me tell you how goddamn angry it makes me that a fucking socialist is my favorite city councilor. And that is the highest praise I've ever gotten. I'll treasure it till the day I die, and be like that, right? So I didn't I didn't throw away my values and just meet him where he was at in terms of not also arguing, but I heard him. I in good faith did a steel man argument to what he was saying, found some stuff we agree on, even if it's 90% stuff we disagree on. And you can win people's respect, even if they hate you, right? So yeah.
Amazing. I'm going to give the microphone.
Yeah.
It's easier to walk around. Don't worry about the camera. What's your name again?
My name's Robs.
We've met before.
Yeah, it's good to see you. Pronouns are they, them. Hi. What do you think is missing from leftist organizing in Indianapolis right now that maybe has existed before, hasn't? And how do you think the concept of third place can contribute to that?
That's really
I
good.
love the end part.
Yeah, that's an excellent question. And yeah, bonus points for bringing it back to Michael in third space. Yeah, I think that what is missing, I think there are processes and, thought has been given to this, but I don't think it's working yet, about finding a way to come together and have constructive criticism and find ways to disagree while still being friends or still being comrades, right? So there are a bunch of different lefty groups who, has anybody ever seen The Life of Brian, Monty Python? Do you remember the scene in the arena where it's like the Judean People's Front? They're like, oh, we're not the Judean People's Front, we're the People's Front of Judea. They're splitters, screw them. And they're talking about who are the biggest threats? And the correct answer was the Romans, but no, it's the Judean People's Front. It's like leftist groups fighting other leftist groups. That was a joke in the 70s, but it's still been true where I think that it's a both and sort of thing where there are valid reasons. I don't think it's all lefties should just dissolve and melting pot into one group. I think that they're, different people do different things well. And you're allowed to say, I think one thing you did was screwed up. And I think that's problematic. But I think we have to find a way to set boundaries such that the people can still exist and you should still recognize they're probably a lot closer to your point of view than MAGA, right? And so how do we work together? How do we find things that we do agree on without feeling like we have to agree on everything? And I think a third space could be really beneficial to that because, two ways. One, I think meeting on neutral ground, right? So my Jets and your Sharks are gonna come together and it shouldn't be on either of our gang turf, right? So we should go to a place where both of us are feeling a little bit outside. And then honestly, I think you should try to have these conversations in public because chances are if you're two different leftists arguing about something where you're going to be in a coffee shop and everyone in that coffee shop is going to be like, what the hell are those people talking about? That's probably a good sign that maybe you're in the weeds too deep and you should touch grass and talk with regular real people instead. So I think those are the two ways third places could be super helpful at grounding us, figuratively.
I want to answer the third space part.
Do it.
Yeah, this is all I think about. So a lot of the benefit of third spaces and the reason they don't exist anymore, there is an intentional, systematic reason they don't exist, which is that most third spaces do not generate a ton of money. And historically, third spaces, I think of women's clubs, I think of the YMCA, I think of coffee shops in a lot of ways, but primarily women's clubs. I'm thinking of the, what's the one over on Delaware? Propylaeum.
Yeah.
Historically, third spaces are a place where, because you're interfacing with your neighbors regularly, you start to realize a collective conscious of what is wrong with your life and what is wrong with your neighbor's life. And then you stop disagreeing on things and you start going, fuck that guy over there. And that's how real change is made. So the death of the third space is terrible, both from a suburban and life fulfillment aspect, but also just an organizing, make your life better aspect. And so making intentional time to create these spaces and be here together like we are now is really important, because you start to understand that even though I think socialism is bad, Jesse Brown himself is not a bad guy. Even though that guy who met him at the City-County Council building, it's when you are intentional and you get out from behind your screen and you say hello to someone face to face, you're not going to punch them more than likely unless you're a freak. You're probably going to sit down and have a conversation that's worth something. That's how I would say. Yeah. All right. Did you still have your question?
Well, I have a two-part question. The first one's, I don't need to say it into the mic. Is it really your birthday?
No, it's Third Space Indy's birthday.
Oh, okay. Okay, cool. I was like, do I need to say
Happy birthday, Michael Zarek. It's your birthday.
Okay, cool.
You're 1 year old.
Please don't do that.
My other question is not the most interesting of questions, but I spend a lot of time thinking about grant making, contracting, procurement, and like the money of it all and how that flows from public dollars, often in the case of Indianapolis, to like private corporations, instead of to organizations that like build and localize wealth. And I'm wondering from your perspective if you see like any conflicts between the way that like people currently sit on and inhabit and leverage city council and their connections to create financial benefit for themselves. And I'm wondering also just like how you see potential for like change, maybe in the regulatory sense, in some sorts of like legal senses or ways that we can interface with, to help ensure that like future administrations and also future city county councils aren't like marred with like contractual cronyism. Yeah.
Excellent question.
She says as she leaves for Seattle.
Yeah. See ya, deuces. Yeah. Excellent question. Yeah, I don't think you'll be surprised to know that, yes, I see a massive amount of what I'll just call corruption, whether it's illegal or not. In a just world, it would be illegal. It people benefiting privately in ways that, as a representative, their constituents don't benefit. That's corruption, right? Like, you don't have to be an evil person. I know that's the way it's done. It's, how things work. It's still corruption. It's not in the service of a better society that we have this. And there's a bunch of different reasons for it. And like, I think by nature of serving in a majority Democrat legislature, I end up complaining about like the Joe Hogsett wing of the Democratic Party and the Democrats in general, although that's, I'm an elected Democrat. But I think it's really important to talk about the fact that Republicans' just utter hatred of government itself, I think, is at the root of a lot of these systems where public dollars flow to private, companies. It's, most other countries, like not maybe most other countries, a lot of developed countries, especially in Europe, just have public agencies that handle things. Like we wouldn't have a BlackRock, a Qatari consortium running our electric company, right? That makes sense. Why would we do that? Why not just, if it's a monopoly, the government should run it, right? And that's how most countries have done that. And one of the biggest reasons we don't have that in this country is because one of our political parties runs for office saying you can't trust the government, and then they take over the government and intentionally wreck it so that people don't trust the government. And, it's like, it shouldn't be surprising that when you go in saying, I will wreck everything, and then you do, that's not the government not working. That means the government's efficient at doing what you set out to do. And what you set out to do was wreck shit, So, I'm a big fan of Zoran Mamdani, and I think he's doing a really good job of just proving, actually, there's nothing inherent about the public sector that stops us from being able to do work efficiently and well. But part of the solution that makes the public sector not this big, scary thing, and not the Ronald Reagan scariest words in the English language are "I'm from the government, I'm here to help," is when you feel like the government is us, right? It's like with union work. If people are thinking about the union out there and not like, I am the union, we are the union, then you're never going to really engage and lean in and fix the problems in your union and insist that it gets better. And so, even though like the short version I tell people about why I ran for office is because I got sick of throwing tomatoes from the sidelines, right? And so while people are just being like, man, screw the government, they're like really bad. Yes, they are really bad, but it's your money that they're being really bad with. Like you should have a problem with that, and you should feel very insistent and empowered on stepping up and making it work better. So the solution at the macro level and at the micro level, I think, is way more transparency and accountability. And so I have to give like a shout out to local journalism, both like, podcasters, as well as Mirror Indy, and like even Indy Star is doing some really good investigative journalism lately. And then I think we have to like figure out a way. I'm just seeing the parallel here with what we just talked about with Third Spaces, right? Where the profit motive is what sucks out the ability for those to just naturally crop up like the clover. I'm pulling all these things together. It's the weave. It's the weave. I'm Donald Trump right now. Okay. Deep cut. All right. But
No
all
edits.
Right. All right. So profit motive sucks all the life out of everything. It allows money and people with money to flood the zone, right? Like you can't put up a new art space or artist housing because it's all corporate owned, right? In the same way, it's really hard for messages to get through the noise because the big tech oligarchs are flooding the zone with just mass produced, like advertisements essentially for the world that they want to create. And so for every good Mirror Indy article that exposes some corruption, you get 100 local news stories about a latest shooting, as though that's like somehow news and not a predictable outcome, right? And so part of it has to be, like, as a socialist, I'm very leery of advice that's like, oh, well, people just need to do more better themselves, because I think it's a systemic problem that needs systemic solutions. But I think we do need to all lean in and like pay attention when there are stories like that, talk to people about it. We all have friends who like aren't political. It's like, okay, well, you could be not political, but like, let's talk about this like audit of OPHS. Let's talk about, the amount of city contracts that went to the Mr. Clean, right? Like, there are stories that we should be talking about and then following up on and insisting change things. So I don't know. That was a super long answer. Short version: fewer private contracts total. Really, really relevant right now. Last week in the IBJ, Indianapolis Business Journal, for those who aren't woke, they talked about the city of Indianapolis is spending $360,000 to pay a consultant to study whether or not we have enough parking downtown.
Oh my God.
We already did that.
I'll go do it.
Yes. Or pay me, and I'll do the DNC autopsy study and be like, we have enough. Call me on it.
If you
I'll
don't
show my
know,
work.
I believe it's 27% of our downtown land area is parking spots.
Yes. And so I found out that no city councilor, including Kristen Jones, who's the chair of the Public Works Committee, was told about this expenditure of $360,000. And so I tried to introduce a proposal that just said, let's amend city code in basically all of my district, near Indigo Mass Transit and near the compact context area. And let's just say there are no parking minimums there. We have enough parking spots. Like, anybody who's mad because their house doesn't have parking, and there will be some, come talk to me about it. I'll take up all the hate. I'll lose my next election if need be. I think that would like absolutely unlock a lot of like positive development in the district. And they're not even letting me put it on the agenda. They're claiming that that's illegal. So like, there are things we can do to just say, no, we refuse to pay consultants. We're in fact just going to take a political risk and let people vote yes or no if they like that or not. And we should be really mad when our tax dollars are spent to pay an out-of-town consultant to study something that they've never asked an opinion poll
It's
about
also
what
not just
people
out of
live
town.
here.
I think it's out of state.
Yes,
Yeah,
almost
which
always.
which is worse. Great question. Anyone else? Oh my gosh. I'm gonna give it to Anna because she shares my wife's name.
It's a really good name. Yeah, I think as a citizen and a voter, it's very easy to kind of focus on like who out there shares my opinions, who believes in the same things I do. But something that gets less attention is like the actual like follow through, the actual like making things happen, making projects be completed in the way that they're supposed to be completed. And so how do you think about that in your current position?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, part of it is encouraging people to criticize me more, right? Because when I have 6,000 things, as Michael notices, that I'm doing, inevitably I'm going to fail to follow through on a lot of them. And so I want people to feel empowered and encouraged to be like, hey, you failed to follow through on that. I'm like, oh, yep, so I did. Thank you.
Email 3 times.
Yeah, you should, hopefully you should never have to do that to me, but sometimes you have to wait 4 or 5 days for me to get back to you. So that's part of it. And then also trying to demonstrate, like, I never ever want to tell people, yeah, I'm working on it, trust me. Like, don't trust me. Like, if I can't show my work, I probably don't have anything I'm proud of that I've done, right? There's nothing I'm doing that's secret that I can't talk about it. Even if it's like, I've had meetings on Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and here's where they're at right now. This is what I'm frustrated with, but here's what I'm trying to do. Like, I don't have to share people's secrets. I don't want it to be where no other politician will have a confidential conversation with me because I just spill their guts on Main Street or whatever. But like, I can still tell you specific action items I'm doing and specific blockers. And so this came up. So when I ran for office, it was against the sitting vice president of the city council. And I talked to constituents a lot about this, the differences between the two of us, because he was known as one of the most progressive people on the council. And he had this great idea years back, noticing how many problems there are with out-of-state absentee landlords. True, I also have problems with those. He had a really good idea, which was to create a landlord registry where landlords would have to register with the city, be on a spreadsheet showing who is your local agent and then pay just like some small fee to show that the city like knows who you are. You're not just running an illegal rental out of your basement or whatever. The state house came through and preempted Indianapolis and said, that's illegal. You know, that interferes with the sacred bond between landlord and tenant. So you can't force people to use that registry. It could be an opt-in only. And so what my predecessor did was left it on his website as a landlord registry, even though it was no longer useful for anybody. And so the difference there is I would have been like, here are the names and phone numbers of the people who say that your slumlord gets to hide from the government. And it's these state house representatives who voted on this. Make sure they know about it. I will be fighting them until they're out of office, right? And so like, you know, I think there's some people who think that that looks like passing the buck and like, oh, I'm just blaming other people. But in this case, like he had good policy. It was on the books. And there are specific people who took that away from his constituents. They deserve to know that. You know, in our state, the city council does not have unlimited power. And so, you know, like if I can't do it, I want you to know why not and who we can collectively, me right shoulder to shoulder with you, can go talk to about it to try to persuade them or yell at them and you know, make them change their mind.
Good answer, as always. I also want to let you know that the guy you ran against is Alexa's uncle. Not to call you out.
One of my political heroes. Yeah, I never thought I would win the election.
That's true. In the interest of disclosure. Andrea, do you still want to ask a question? What's giving you hope today? Great question.
I am an extrovert to a ridiculous degree. So anytime I can sit with a bunch of people and talk to people, especially people I'm meeting for the first time, that just gives me hope and I ride on that high.
How many people here do you know? Did you know? Sorry.
Did I know?
Yeah.
Now you're gonna put me on the spot because I was about to say, yeah, yeah. Raise your hand if I should know you, and if I look at you like, then I'll be like, oh shit.
That's a good question.
Okay, good. Phew. I was worried there'd be several people because you know, like I do social media and stuff, so somebody like, yeah, I know you. I was like, really? Shit, I'm sorry.
There's a lot of people here I've never seen before, so it's good for both of us in a lot of ways. Any other questions? Yeah. Oh, wait, here.
Should I say my name? Sure. My name's Jason. First of all, thank you guys both for doing this. A big third space for me, I'm from Northern Indiana, is the dispensary. Are we any closer in Indiana to having that option? Or
You asked about weed.
So I had a constituent post online about data centers. I'll get there if this does connect. But he posted online about data centers, and he had been involved in historic urban neighborhoods of Indianapolis for like decades, has been like really big on like constituent connections. And he talked about data centers as being the issue where the average belief of the constituents is further from the average belief of elected officials than any other issue. And I think he was almost right, because I think marijuana is probably actually the number one issue. Data centers, at least it's new enough that some people are like, you know, just don't have an opinion. But most people understand what marijuana is. And I've yet to meet someone in the last 5 years who can put up a good reason why they think it should be illegal. So even people, you know, who don't consume it and don't think it's good to consume, it's really hard to justify looking at alcohol and then look at marijuana, like look at the deleterious side effects of it. There's just no excuse other than lobbyists. And so, are we close? It's just like, I mean, I like was afraid to say this out loud before the 2024 election, but I was like, if I were a, you know, like demagogue who just wanted control of the White House for corrupt purposes like Donald Trump, I would just say, I'm legalizing weed nationwide on day one. And he would have won in a landslide. He won anyway, apparently. But like, you know, like it just is a really huge opening for institutional establishment politicians not to be on the same page as constituents over this issue that so many people, it impacts their daily or at least weekly or monthly life. So I just think like it's this giant gap that shows our political system is bought off by lobbyists because, you know, like no one can just like run on that and be convinced. Like even people who run on that, most of the electorate's like, you'll never be able to get it done. And they're probably right, which should be a sign. Like, why would this non-controversial common sense thing be so hard to pass, right? So that's my weed take. Yeah, right.
Also on the topic of like third spaces, sorry, pull it back. There's a place in Broad Ripple called the Health Club, and back in the late fall or early winter, it was around the same time that they like started to cut SNAP benefits, which is an unfortunate double double tap, I guess.
Sure.
I went to go talk to the owner because I'd never been in there before. Just like talk to him about like what he thought about the legislation of them taking away hemp products. Because if you don't know, it's the health club, which is THC, haha, double entendre. They sell, I don't understand all the chemicals and stuff like that, but they sell THC drinks. And you just talking to him about the people that come into his space, the people that have expressed thanks to him for creating this community space that they enjoy hanging out in, talking to veterans that no longer have to deal with PTSD or pain, and just things like that, where they are in a lot of ways providing a service that frankly alcohol does not serve beyond just like the emotional like Third Space Act thing is really compelling to me also. So I just it seems so silly. Great. Any other questions? Everyone feeling good? I think that we've gone long enough.
Back to my monologue.
Jesse Brown. Oh wait, one last thing. Plug the Socialist Party of Indiana.
Oh yeah. So my 10 out of 10 wife I mentioned earlier, Mary Kate Dugan, is the chair of the Socialist Party of Indiana. Wearing a little button here. I know a lot of people, so like 10 people when they came to vote for me in the primary in 2023 walked in and were like, no, I'm an independent, man. I'm not part of the Democratic Party, which meant they weren't allowed to vote for me as a Democrat. They just voted on the IPS referendum and didn't get to vote on anybody in the primary, and they didn't understand how that works. Democratic Party in this state is, I think, 27% of people have a positive opinion on it. And so we're in this like position where I think the vast majority of people see the huge problems with Republican Party, especially under MAGA, having unlimited control in the state. We want that to stop. And whether I like it or not, there are a lot of people who just will not vote for a Democrat any longer. And they just have a bunch of problems with the Democratic Party. And after seeing Greg Taylor and Joe Hogsett and Karen Talion and like a lot of the problems we've seen, I understand where they're coming from. And so right now, anytime a progressive, especially in Marion County, challenges the Democratic establishment, they do some version of what they did to me, right? So they kicked me out of the caucus. They didn't kick me out of the Democratic Party yet. Mary Kate probably wouldn't like me saying this on the podcast, but I'm going to anyway. There is a lawsuit that went all the way up to the 7th Circuit Court of Appeals where they can kick somebody out of the party just because, and now you don't have access to the ballot line anymore. And you can run, but it's as an independent, and like write-ins have a really difficult time. So this project, Socialist Party of Indiana, is to create another ballot line, not to say like never use the Democratic ballot line ever again, but for places where a county party chair is way out of lockstep with the rest of the state or the rest of the country. They can't stop people from getting on the ballot. So we have another path forward. And so a good friend of mine, Ben Davis, is running for House District 13, which is like rural parts of Indiana near Lafayette. It went in 2022. Matt Commons is their representative. He's a first time he ever ran for office. He won. He's a MAGA like school teacher, high school teacher there. No connection to the political establishment. The Democrat in that race just put their name on the ballot and never campaigned. And so I think the Republican got 70% of the ballot. The Democrat got like 20%. And so when my buddy Ben wanted to run, he was like, I just want to actually campaign and fight. And the local county party chair up there told him, no, you can't, because you keep telling the people that you're a Democratic socialist like Zoran. And so you're not a Democrat, you can't run. And he's like, well, but I'm not a Republican. And the whole point is I want to fight the Republicans. They said, no, you're going to ruin our brand. We would rather you not run at all than run as an open Democratic socialist. So he decided he was going to run as an independent anyway. Right. So we recruited him in. He's running as a Socialist Party of Indiana candidate. And, he may or may not win. I think he could. I think people should go up and knock a bunch of doors for him, because I went up and knocked doors for him and talked to regular renters up there who hate, the Republican Party. They hate what's going on. They also think the Democrats are only concerned about culture war issues and are just as bought out by the corporate elites and aren't actually going to change anything. I'm like, man, I have a hard time arguing against you, but don't worry, my buddy is not that, right? And I knocked doors and talked to 45 people, regular renters, multiracial people. Not a single person balked at the word socialism. And that's in a deep red 70% MAGA area. So I really think that Zoran, AOC, Bernie, who won this state's primary in 2016, commandingly show a lot of people are ready for socialism. And so this is a new ballot line project that you should get involved with, socialistpartyin.com. Fight from within the Democratic Party if you can, and if you have a path forward. But there were a lot of people in like the 5 years before I ran who tried to run for office. And just like the 80-something precinct committee people and state party delegates a couple months ago, look it up on Mirror Indy, they just got prevented from being able to run for office. They just got stricken from the ballot line, and then they just gave up, and then they just got salty and stopped participating in politics. So I think of this as like a backstop ballot line where it's like, just because you hate the two parties, so do I. Some of us are willing to hold our nose and fight through it anyway. If you're not, here's another place for you to be and for you to successfully contest for power anyway.
Shout out ranked choice.
Ranked choice, now illegal thanks to our Republican legislature, but it's still the right thing. Yes, direct democracy.
What's direct democracy?
All the things we don't have.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
It is very clear our state house does not want the people to be in charge. Like, they know if they put abortion on the ballot, we would no longer have banned abortion in this state. So they won't let us do it.
Totally. Well, I think that wraps it up for us. For anybody who wants to find you, where can they find you? At Rabble Coffee, honestly.
Usually at Rabble Coffee. I'm at Jesse for Indy on most socials. I think I'm at Naptown J Brown on TikTok. I'm bad at actually figuring out how social media works. And so there's been a lot of just mistakes I made that caused that problem. Or 317-370-7079 is my cell phone number. Or Jesse at jesseforind.com is my email address. Like, anybody could reach out to me. If you call me, I am a millennial, so I won't answer the phone. But then my voicemail says, "What are you doing? Why are you trying to leave a voicemail? Please text me or email me." But if you leave a voicemail, maybe you'll make it into my TikTok videos, apparently.
Oh, that was a good video.
It was pretty funny.
Also, if you text him saying, "Can I call you?" he will most likely respond with yes. So that's...
Yeah, I get on calls all the time, just not out of the blue like that. Come on.
Great. Thank you guys for being here. Yeah.
Happy birthday!
Happy birthday, Third Space Indy. Please don't sing the song.
To you, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Third Space Indy. Happy birthday to you. I want to cut of that just zooming in on your angry face.
I think more importantly, my 2-year wedding anniversary with my wife is coming up in like 2 weeks.
Aww.
Yeah, June 9th. Is there a happy anniversary song? I want to thank Patina Art Gallery for hosting us today.
Yeah.
I want to thank our sponsors, City Rising and Proformus. I also want to thank Circle City Mutual Aid. If you have not talked to them today, this is a wonderful organization here in Indianapolis doing wonderful work on the ground with people who need their help. So talk to them if you haven't. But you can find me at Third Space Indy on Instagram. Cool. I think we're done. Oh, shout out to Jennison for the intro music. One day we'll find her. I need to get her on the podcast. Thank you so much for watching or listening wherever you are. Goodbye.
Scared rabbit, is the coast clear? Go grab it, you're gonna starve here. On your bed of death with one regret, but you never said.